Okay, big warning for this one. There's a lot of child manipulation, and there's still the violence and gore like the other story. So, you've been warned. Click off if you're sensitive to that stuff. Also, I'm sorry this video took a while.
I found you!
Schooled a pink mare with curly mane and tail, snatching a young yellow filly who screamed. The time figure was dragged from under her big sister's bed, and then lifted high into the air by her captor.
How'd you find me?
Laughed little Applebloom, meeting the blue eyes of her foal sitter.
I saw part of your tail sticking out.
Pinkie Pie giggled, and she set the child back down on the floor.
It's your turn to hide. And don't go easy on me. I'm too good for it.
The party pony saluted, waited for Applebloom to hide her face, to start counting, and took off like a bullet to find a hiding spot. Applebloom was not yet old enough to watch over herself while her older sister and grandmother worked on the farm. She was only 8 years old, so she'd need a supervisor for another 2 years, and for reasons she didn't understand, the little pony didn't have parents like the other foals in Ponyville. Her brother and sister, Big Macintosh and Applejack, said that they passed away shortly after she was born, but Applebloom didn't know what that meant. It didn't bother her too much. She didn't even remember them. Pinkie Pie was always happy to watch over the filly whenever Applejack asked her to, for she was very fond of Applebloom. In a way, she sort of reminded her a little of herself mixed with a little of one of her own older sisters, Pinkie Pie. Pinkie had been foal-sitting this cute little filly for about 1.5 years, and she cared about her very much. So much so, in fact, she took Applebloom off of a certain list she had, one of every pony in Ponyville.
91, 100. Ready or not, here I come.
Called Applebloom, and she bounded out of the room. She was indeed very skilled at seeking, but Pinkie Pie was also incredibly good at hiding. The party pony seemed to be able to do things that other ponies couldn't, but that just made the challenge more fun. The filly knew to not just check under beds and tables, but behind bookcases, under plates, inside cups, on the ceiling, and even inspect her own stuffed animals to see if they had a heartbeat. She learned how to check for a pulse from Pinkie Pie herself. She had told the filly,
"If it goes ba-bump, it's a living lump. If it's quiet instead, it's either fake or dead."
The concept of death wasn't very clear to Applebloom, so she always wondered what the difference was. She knew that both meant not alive. A good 15 minutes went by, and still the filly couldn't find her friend. A little crease between her brows showed her confusion and frustration, which Applejack saw upon entering the house. "We're all done, Applebloom," she said, but noticed her sister's face. "What's wrong? Where's Pinkie Pie?"
"She's hiding,"
Applebloom replied.
"I gotta find her, but I've checked everywhere."
Then she blinked and looked straight up to the ceiling. A light bulb lit the lamp, but it was tinted pink for some reason.
"I found you! You're in the light bulb!"
The bulb shattered and the room became dim, but the party pony landed safely on her hooves.
"You're getting so good!"
she squealed, hopping up and down. "Chasing crust, Pinkie Pie!" Applejack exclaimed, shaking bits of glass off of her hat. It was lucky none of them had gotten hurt. "For one, that was dangerous. For two, how'd you even get in there?"
"I took a left to Albuquerque."
Applejack figured she ought not to question this, knowing her pink friend was just too outrageous to make sense sometimes. "Let me get your payment and y'all can get on home," she said with a sigh. In no way did she dislike Pinkie Pie, quite the opposite. But she had been working on the farm all day, and now she had to clean up a bunch of broken glass and replace a light bulb. It was actually a godsend that Pinkie made herself available to Fulsa each time she needed her.
"Oh, does she have to go right now? Maybe Miss Pinkie can spend the night,"
said Applebloom, hugging Pinkie Pie's arm.
"Actually, Applebloom, I have some important baking to do tomorrow, so I need to be well rested and prepared,"
said the party pony.
"I'll drop by tomorrow to give you all some cupcakes, though, so don't worry. Can I come over and help?"
Pinkie's eye twitched, but otherwise her expression did not show anything suspicious.
"No, you're too young,"
was her excuse.
"You might get hurt."
"Here you go, Pinkie," said Applejack, coming back in from the kitchen and handing Pinkie Pie a sack. She opened it and saw a small collection of candy, and then gave a wide smile.
"It's all here! Well, I'll be on my way. You girls have a fantastic night,"
she sang. Applejack and Applebloom waved as she left the house, Applebloom looking disappointed. Outside, Pinkie passed Big Mac and Granny Smith, and she bade a friendly farewell to them too. Bouncing and humming merrily into the streets of Ponyville, Pinkie greeted multiple ponies on her way to Sugar Cube Corner, and they were all enthusiastic to return the favor. Once inside the bakery, Pinkie sang, "I'm home!" Then she waited, her ears perked. There was no response.
Perfect!
Quick as a flash, the party pony shot upstairs to put her things away, and then down to the bakery to take the back door to get outside again. This area behind Sugar Cube Corner was slightly shadowed by a few bushes, and mostly a blind spot to the rest of the surrounding area. Pinkie Pie slinked like a cat to crawl under the bushes, and found a large rock set against the wall. With a grunt, she rolled the rock to the side, revealing a hole in the dirt, which she dove into, crying, "Whee!" all the way down. A cloud of dust shot into the musty air when Pinkie landed in the dirt. She was now in a rather large room she had dug out herself underneath the bakery. She had even added extra support beams, columns, and managed to avoid the septic tank. The hole outside was the only entrance to the secret area, and even though it was small, the party pony had once again done the impossible, having dragged tables, chairs, tools, and various devices much too large to fit. These devices did not look friendly, but sinister. It was no surprise, of course, as they were built for torture. Pinkie Pie had discovered very old torture devices during one of her incredibly rare depression episodes a couple of years ago. They were living in the bowels of the remains of the dilapidated castle of the two sisters, and it was enough for Pinkie's usual mania to return to her. It didn't take too long for her to build the secret basement because she was just that amazing. On top of the tools and the furniture, there were a few skeletons piled in a heap in the corner from all ages of pony, and on a table was a stack of fabric made from pony hide. The rest of the decor were her typical colored streamers, confetti, party hats nailed to the wall, and balloons that were already losing their helium. Last but not least, there was a candle and a book of matches on her work table. She lit it, then started to set up for tomorrow's playdate. It was around noon, and Applebloom was supposed to be taking her nap. However, she did not want to take her nap, thank you very much. She wanted to help Pinkie Pie with baking. Even though Pinkie foolishly thought the filly was too young to bake? No siree. Applebloom was a big girl, and she could do anything any mare could do. Nobody paid attention to the unsupervised foal trotting through the streets. Crime wasn't a big deal in Ponyville, so the attitudes of citizens were pretty lax. The only problems they encountered were a young thief here and there, a scammer or two, petty troublemaking kids, and one or two ponies going missing every few months or so. The latter caused some worry, but they all assured themselves that the ponies that disappeared just moved away without telling any pony. In the last 4 years, though, there were a pair of foals that evaporated from the town, and despite the search party, they were never seen again. The conclusion was they had met their demise by some dangerous creature in the Everfree forest, and the parents were reasonably upset. As Applebloom hummed a song Pinkie had taught her, she arrived at the door of Sugar Cube Corner and went inside. Mrs. Cake was dusting candy jars that lined the shelves at the far wall, but she turned toward the filly when she heard the bell tingle. "Oh!" she exclaimed.
Hello, you're Applejack's little sister, right? Sure am,
said Applebloom.
Name's Applebloom. Is Miss Pinkie Pie here?
Sorry, hun, you just missed her. She headed out about 10 minutes ago. Don't know where she went, but that sweet pony is so adventurous, she could be anywhere. Mrs. Cake offered Applebloom a lollipop.
Thank you,
she said, though her brow was furrowed.
If you see Miss Pinkie, please tell her I stopped by, alright?
I certainly will, said Mrs. Cake, and Applebloom exited the bakery. While she sucked on her strawberry lollipop, she stood there and thought hard. She could have sworn Pinkie Pie said she was baking today, so why was she not here? Had she lied? Just then, her ears twitched and shifted towards a grunt somewhere behind her, and she flipped around, peeking past the side wall of Sugar Cube Corner. Some bushes shifted very slightly, and Applebloom silently went to investigate. A soundless gasp escaped her mouth as she hid under a bush, seeing Pinkie Pie pushing the unconscious body of a big brown stallion toward a hole in the ground. It looked as though the party pony was having a great deal of difficulty, so Applebloom assumed the stallion was heavy. When she finally got him inside the hole, she wiped her brow and jumped in after. Applebloom sat there for a few minutes, her head tilted in even more confusion. Who was that stallion? Why wasn't he moving? Was he asleep? Where did this hole come from? Why did Pinkie drag him through it? She decided that the only way to find out was to follow Pinkie and spy on her. Pinkie Pie jumped from shock at the sound of some pony landing on the floor, and she looked over to see Applebloom stand up, peering around in the dimly lit cave beneath Sugar Cube Corner. Her big round eyes met Pinkie's, but then settled on the stallion strapped to a rotating table. It was currently at a more vertical angle.
Applebloom?
Pinkie squeaked. Little filly, the previously unconscious stallion said quickly. Go get help, please, help me. Applebloom stared at him and then at Pinkie Pie, whose eyes were welling up with tears.
No,
she whimpered.
Applebloom, I can't kill you. You don't even have a number. Kill me?
Applebloom forced out. That meant making something alive not alive anymore, right?
You're a witness.
said Pinkie in distress.
I can't let you go. You'll tell every pony, but I can't kill you. I care about you so much. What do I do?
You can let me go. The stallion tried, but Pinkie Pie stabbed a scalpel into his arm, making him yelp before falling silent.
Is that Telltale?
Applebloom wondered, squinting through the weak light at the prisoner. Telltale was a Pegasus that volunteered to tell her class stories once a week. I recognize you, Telltale said urgently. You're the Apple Filly. Please go get help. If you don't, I won't be able to tell you stories anymore. Applebloom wasn't paying much attention, instead watching her pink friend cry, and even her mane seemed less poofy.
Pinkie Pie?
She said slowly.
What are you doing to Telltale? Why can't I see? Isn't there anything I can do to help?
Pinkie suddenly stopped crying, and her blue gaze was intense as it bore into the filly like a mole in fresh soil.
Help?
She said thoughtfully.
Applebloom, do you know what it means to die? Well, I know my parents died, and they're not here, but I don't really understand.
The filly replied.
To die is to stop living,
Pinkie explained, prying the scalpel out of Telltale's arm.
If Applejack died, she wouldn't be around anymore. There's nothing you can do to bring her back. Killing is the act of making some pony die, and it can be quite painful.
During this explanation, Pinkie Pie had been pacing, but she stopped to turn to Applebloom again.
I kill ponies and put them into cupcakes, then we eat them. If killing is making a pony go away forever, isn't that bad?
Asked Applebloom. Don't you corrupt that child! Telltale shouted at Pinkie, but she ignored him.
It's bad,
she agreed.
But sometimes it's so much fun to be bad. You just don't care anymore. Come here. Are you gonna kill me?
Applebloom asked cautiously, but Pinkie Pie giggled.
No, I'm gonna show you how it works.
She replied. Applebloom hesitated, but then she trotted over to Pinkie and her victim, who was struggling against his restraints.
The first thing I like to do is remove the cutie mark.
Making sure Applebloom had a clear view, Pinkie Pie used the scalpel to draw around the marking of an open book, which caused Telltale to gasp and grunt in pain. Then Pinkie sliced the skin from the muscle and showed the mark to the filly.
Why do you take their cutie marks?
She asked.
It's like a trophy. It's so I always remember this moment,
said Pinkie, and her mane seemed to return to normal.
Wanna do the other one?
No! Cried Telltale. Applebloom, you need to understand that what she's doing is very wrong.
I ain't got my cutie mark yet,
said Applebloom.
I gotta try a bunch of new stuff to get it, don't I? If Miss Pinkie says being bad is fun, then I wanna try it.
She joined Pinkie Pie on the other side of the table. The party pony gave Applebloom the scalpel, but held her wrist to guide the filly's cut around the flank. Very slowly and much more painfully, the blade went around the cutie mark, and Applebloom's eyes sparkled. The feeling of how easily the blade cut flesh was extremely satisfying, and even more so when Pinkie showed her how to cut it off the muscle.
That was great, Applebloom!
Pinkie Pie sang. Applebloom stared at the skin in her hooves, blood staining her yellow fur. Something was happening inside the filly's head, something she didn't notice, and wouldn't understand if she did. Her curiosity was growing, and she began to forget that Telltale was a living pony just like her. Now he was an object.
Yes, Miss Pinkie, I want to help. You don't have to kill me or nothing. I won't tell,
she said with a hop and a smile. A huge grin stretched across Pinkie Pie's face, and she set the scalpel down on a tray of implements nearby. Now she chose a saw, and Telltale began screaming for help, hoping his voice would carry through the tunnel that led down here.
Shush,
said the pink pony.
Applebloom, I'm going to stretch out his wings. I need you to hold it nice and tight, okay? All right.
The filly piped, and she grabbed hold of one of Telltale's wings as tightly as she could. Oh, Celestia, please, the stallion prayed. Pinkie positioned the saw at the joint where the wing met the body and began viciously working through the flesh and bone. Telltale let out a blood-curdling scream. Blood splashed onto Applebloom's face, and even though she was smiling, her lip trembled, her pupils contracted, and her heart hammered in her chest. It felt like there were two ponies inside of her. One tried to remind Applebloom that Telltale was another pony that didn't deserve to be harmed, and the other just said, more, more, more. The wing thumped to the floor, and the pair moved to the other side to rid Telltale of his second wing. His screams were no less than the first time, but now he was crying at the loss of such important appendages to a Pegasus. Once that one was on the floor as well, Pinkie Pie picked up both wings and placed them in a pile of bones.
I'll skin those later,
Pinkie told Applebloom.
Now this is where the fun really starts.
Applebloom didn't know if she should cry or laugh, so the sound that came out was sort of an in-between. Pinkie Pie giggled and pat Applebloom on the head.
Okay, all of this is okay, Applebloom. You can do the next part if you want. What is it?
asked Applebloom. Pinkie Pie retrieved a hammer and some nails. Then she studied Telltale for a second, deciding where to put them. Finally, she put 2 nails in his neck, avoiding the jugular vein. 1 in each pectoral and 1 in each knee. To each of these nails, Pinkie attached a jumper cable, which led to an electric box. Once Telltale was all hooked up, Pinkie pointed to a lever on the box.
Go ahead and flip that lever,
she cheered. With difficulty, the little filly pulled the lever down, and Telltale lit up with buzzing electricity. The voltage was high enough that it kept him from screaming. Pinkie waited a minute or so before instructing Applebloom to flip the lever back up. Telltale was panting, light smoke coming off of his body.
Just a little wake-up call,
said Pinkie Pie.
We don't want to burn him. You look like a heartwarming decoration.
Applebloom giggled.
I want you to choose what we do next,
said Pinkie. Applebloom considered their victim for a moment and then looked over at the freshly cut wings.
We took his wings off,
she said.
So shouldn't we take his arms and legs?
Pinkie squealed with delight.
I'm so positively you're learning quick.
Are you serious right now? Telltale croaked. Look, Applebloom, how about I tell you a story?
What?
Asked Applebloom. It might help you see that what you're doing is very wrong.
Telltale, do you think I haven't read 1001 Saddle Arabian Nights?
Said Pinkie incredulously.
I know about Sherazade and how she tells stories to delay something unpleasant. Please, if you really want to tell a story, do it while I'm tying off your limbs.
Telltale hung his head. Applebloom handed the saw to Pinkie Pie again. This was too difficult for a little filly.
Do the legs first.
Pinkie Pie gave a salute, and then with just as much enthusiasm as she did with the wings, she started sawing through Telltale's left leg. He began screaming again, shaking his head back and forth, tears streaming down his face. Applebloom, Celestia bless her little heart, bounced on her haunches and clapped with glee.
Look, Applebloom,
said Pinkie after the first leg dropped to the floor.
He doesn't have a leg to stand on.
After Applebloom's laugh confirmed the joke had hit, Pinkie Pie sawed off the other leg. Before moving to the arms, she wrapped gauze around the stubs so that Telltale wouldn't bleed out. Then Pinkie Pie viciously sawed off the left arm.
Looks like he's been disarmed.
Applebloom howled with laughter again as Telltale sniffled. It was hard to keep screaming because he was so weak, and his voice was shot. After sawing off the last arm, Pinkie Pie dressed those nubs in gauze as well. She took one of the legs on the floor, peeled back the skin, and used a scalpel to cut out a small chunk of meat. She then offered it to Applebloom.
Try it,
she said. The filly was nervous, but slowly took the piece into her mouth. It was hard to chew and had a metallic taste that was unfamiliar with the foal, but she kind of liked it.
Since I blend it into cupcake batter, it's much easier to chew when it's raw. Hey, does any pony know you're here? Oh no,
said Applebloom.
Noah snuck out! Applejack will be looking everywhere for me. Then let's finish this and I'll take you home,
said Pinkie. Quick as a flash, Pinkie used a syringe to inject something into her victim. Then she used a scalpel to cut straight down the middle of Telltale's underside, using horizontal cuts on the top and bottom to create flaps. Looking at the organs, Pinkie thought and then grabbed one, severing it from its home and lifting up for Telltale to see.
Hey Telltale, it's nice stomach, your acquaintance.
Telltale coughed once and some blood splattered out. Then Pinkie went further down.
What did the big intestine say to the small intestine?
Telltale refused to answer.
What?
Said Applebloom.
You're full of crap.
The filly laughed hard, watching Pinkie Pie play with the intestines, making the openings on each end flap like mouths on a puppet.
I really need to be more organized. I usually like to keep my work nice and spleen. After all, godliness is what I long for. You've got to be kidding me. That was really poor delivery.
She removed each organ she made a joke for, and Telltale was oozing blood from his mouth, close to becoming unconscious.
Uh-oh, I have a gut feeling that this is the end of my routine. What's happening to him?
Asked Applebloom, feeling a twinge of fear.
He's dying, of course,
Pinkie Pie replied. She went silent to watch the stallion fade, but the more energy he lost, the more Applebloom gained nervous, scared energy. What had she just done? She imagined Applejack on the table instead, and she began to cry, but Pinkie didn't notice. Finally, the heart, which was still in its rightful place, slowed to a stop. Pinkie Pie whipped around, then she heard Applebloom hyperventilating, and she quickly rushed over to her, holding her tight.
It's okay! Everything's okay!
She tried to reassure.
You did such a good job! I'm really impressed! You should help me again sometime! Is this really okay?
The filly whimpered.
Is this how it was for my parents? Oh, no! Applebloom, your parents weren't murdered! It was just an accident!
Pinkie said, feeling sorry for the foal.
There are many ways to die, Applebloom. This is just one of them. I don't know if I should do this again.
Applebloom muttered.
It's up to you, but just don't tell any pony, okay? I won't.
The pair left Telltale's corpse where it was as they climbed back up the tunnel and out of the ground. Pinkie would gather everything up later. Just as they rounded the corner to get to the front of the bakery, Applejack came galloping up to them.
Applebloom, I've been looking everywhere for you,
she exclaimed angrily.
Sorry, Applejack,
said Pinkie Pie.
I was just about to bring her home. I just wanted to help Miss Pinkie with her cupcakes,
said Applebloom solemnly.
Maybe you can bake with me another time,
Pinkie told her.
Right now, I think you should take it easy. I'm sorry for running off,
Applebloom told her sister.
Next time, just ask me, Big Mac, or Granny Smith to take you somewhere,
said Applejack.
I was so worried about you.
They waved to the party pony and made their way back to Sweet Apple Acres. Pinkie Pie waved back and then returned to her work under the bakery. Applebloom spent a lot of time in her room after that. She kept running the events over and over again in her head. She had enjoyed herself for some of it, that is, until the death came. She hadn't thought that killing some pony would have such a negative effect on her. Now Telltale was gone. No more stories. Just cupcakes. Cupcakes she knew she had eaten before. How many ponies has Pinkie Pie killed? It took some getting used to the nightmares, but Applebloom finally accepted what she had done, and she wanted to try it again. Maybe it wouldn't hurt so bad the second time, so when Pinkie Pie came to the farm to ask if she wanted to help bake cupcakes, there was no question anymore.
Yes,
said Applebloom, with a smile.